CNN News.
Israel is once again forcing me to do another journalist eulogy segment. This one is a little more specific. We're gonna talk about double taps, and how those are terrible war crimes. But so I like how they call this a tragic mishap. No, it was deliberate. Kills more Palestinian journalists, right? So this is over in If America Knew, Israel-Palestine news section, right? But where is my... There we go. So here is Robert in Lakesh, right? And he's going to explain what happened.
So Israel has again slaughtered 5 journalists in the Gaza Strip. And yes, they targeted them and murdered them. And as a journalist myself, who has covered Palestine for over a decade, who's lived in Palestine, who's lost countless colleagues in Gaza to the genocide, who's lost countless friends in Gaza to the genocide, who's lost countless extended family members in Gaza to the genocide, here is my message to the lying, corrupt corporate media that even goes as far as snubbing its own journalists when they're slaughtered. Neutrality is not giving equal say to the guilty party and treating it as if its statements are legitimate. When you have 3, 4, 5 contradictory narratives coming from the party committing a war crime, when you have that war crime on film, you have photographic evidence of that war crime, you have eyewitness testimony of that war crime, and your own journalists are the victim of that war crime. Let me make this very clear. So these stupid, ridiculous, spineless, so-called journalists, and I don't call them journalists anymore because unless you stand with the journalists in Gaza, you don't deserve that title. Let me break it down in a very obvious way for you to make this make sense. If there is a case in a court where there is a murderer and there's a video of the murder taking place, and the statements and the narratives of the murderer change 3, 4, 5 times. They keep offering new so-called evidence. Most of it is, of course, proven wrong. They give you fake videos, doctored audio, time and time again, trying to appeal this case. And then we have eyewitness testimony, and across from you is sitting the family of the victim of this murder. The judge in this case and the jury in this case don't go, well, we have to hear out the statement, the next narrative of the murderer that again contradicts everything they've said, and then give a ruling that is 50-50 down the middle for the murderer and the victim. That is not neutrality. That is giving a ruling that is biased. Let me make it even more clear. If you have a jury, let's go back in history, during the Jim Crow era, and a black man is accused of a crime that there's absolutely no evidence of. None. In fact, all of the evidence points in the opposite direction. But there's an all-white jury sitting there, and they convict that man of the crime regardless. What is that called? That's called bias. That's also called complicity. That's also called racism. And all of us can understand that. Looking at a historical example, we could go back and go, that's definitely wrong. The Western corporate media are that all-white jury. That's what they are. They're not journalists. They're not neutral. They're not balanced. What is balance in a genocide? How can you do balanced reporting on a genocide? This is fucking ridiculous. And we need to call it out because they're all complicit. All of them. Even when their own journalists get slaughtered. And we need to stop pretending like they have any legitimacy. No, they are stenographers for the Israeli military, which has no credibility whatsoever. They are the criminals, and they need to be reported upon as if they are the criminals that they are, especially when we have the evidence of it. If there's evidence to the contrary, sure, but a statement from a military committing a genocide which continually lies is not evidence. It does not need to go in a headline. It's like saying, well, on October 7, 1,100 Israelis were killed, but Hamas said it didn't kill civilians. In your headline. That's how serious it is. However, Hamas has a better track record with telling the truth than the Israeli military. And every single journalist understands that, and they know that. That's the truth. That is the truth. The Israeli military lies the most. And we still sit around and pretend as if a statement from the Israeli military or a statement from the genocidal government and foreign ministry carries any weight, which it doesn't. You're all complicit. Every single journalist that pretends like this is some kind of balanced issue here, when you're reporting on 5 journalists being slaughtered, or not too long ago, Anas al-Sharif, who was murdered with his entire crew, reporting, oh, well, Israel says he's a Hamas commander. You know it's bullshit. You know you're lying. Stop. Because you should all be held accountable. All of you.
I'm with you. But let's get to what really happened. At Gaza Notice, which people should be following if they're not. Breaking journalist killed today by Israel in horrific massacre in Gaza. Hussam El Masri for Reuters. Mohammed Salama, Al Jazeera. Mariam Abu Daka, that was also the AP and Independent Arabic. And Moaz Abu Taha for NBC, right? And as well as Dr. Hassan Duhan, a veteran journalist with a PhD in media and an expert in investigative reporting. So 6th journalist, right? So more names to be added. Let's do this because apparently that doesn't want to work today. Let's go slideshow. But let's scroll to the right thing. Hold on. Almost there. Come on. So here is Mariam Daka, Gaza's Wonder Woman from Ryan Robanzi. She gave her life documenting the truth with her camera. She showed the world what Israel wants to hide. And apparently she dedicated her life to her son, once donated a kidney to save her father during this, which is crazy, doing that during this genocide, to go into surgery to give your kidney, but yeah, so she continued her journalistic mission despite bombardment and displacement, driven by her deep commitment to the profession. Today, she was killed in a deliberate Israeli strike targeting journalists, civil defense workers, and paramedics at Nasir Medical Complex in Khan Yunis. Her photo and words will stay as testimony to the genocide and one of the darkest massacres in journalism history. Since 2020, Mayam had worked as a photographer in Independent Arabia, as well as with several international agencies. So one of the last things she posted, right, was a song for the martyred titled Heaven Awaits, which is heartbreaking. But here she is in a previous interview where she spoke about just Israel targeting journalists, So we'll let her speak. If I just do that and this. So photojournalist Mariam Abu Daka
من قطاع غزة، أعمل لدى الإندبندنت العربية صحيفة بريطانية فريلانسر. بعد استئناف الحرب
After the resumption of the genocide, our fears increased. The Israeli occupation targets journalists because they convey the truth and the images for the outside world. This is the Israeli occupation doesn't want to report. It doesn't want the outside world to know what's happening to us. from targeting and killing children to genocide. So it targets journalists to ensure it only spreads videos from its side, not from both sides. At the beginning of the war on Gaza, there was a lot of interaction from both Arab and foreign countries through marches, protests, and efforts to negotiate and pressure Israel to stop the genocide against Gaza. However, in the recent period, the end of the war, the ceasefire duration, and they considered as if nothing has happened. They consider that Gaza doesn't exist, and are killing innocents and children is seen as something normal to them. The reality is completely different. We are conveying the image, but compared to what is happening to us in Gaza, we only convey about 50% or 40%. So, this is the reality these people are living, you know? So, unfortunate, but this is the camera after it happened, right? So, I mean, literally stained with the blood of these martyrs. So, but Ryan Rabanzi, the weapon Israel fears most, Francesca Albanese, this camera should be exhibited one day in the genocide memorial built in memory of the memorable victims of Israel's genocide in Gaza. Shame on all journalists not raising their voice against the massacre or their brave Palestinian colleagues while documenting the genocide. So she wasn't the, so journalist Anas El-Najjar, working for a Chinese media outlet, shared the final strange message from slain journalist Miriam Abu Daqqa, who was killed in the Israeli airstrike on the Nasir medical complex. So here's her words, right? So Miriam felt that she was close to death. I relied on her for news reports in the Gaza Strip, and she had money with me from her work. Yesterday, she sent me a strange message sharing her niece's account and saying that if she were killed, I should give the money to her niece and tell her it was a gift from her aunt. When I read the news of her murder, I was shocked and unable to comprehend it. I imagine, like many other journalists before her, were getting active threats from Israeli military. Like, directly. Right? So...
yeah.
Especially if she's doing stuff like this. You know? So... But... just to continue... Right? We heard Inlakesh talking about the AP... Right? And just journalists complicit... Right? So here... The AP breaking 4 journalists, including a freelancer who worked with the AP, are among 8 killed. Right? Not even mentioning her fucking name. Right? At Emma97N, fuck you, AP. Mariam Abu Daqqa, her name is Mariam Abu Daqqa. She worked for you. The least you can do is mention her name. Like, so... Here's the AP again. Breaking. The Israeli military says its strike on a Gaza hospital that killed 20 people, including 5 journalists, was aimed at what it believed was a Hamas camera. Yeah, fuck you. Alan McLeod. The phrase Hamas camera will go down as one of the most infamous utterances of this genocide. It will be studied in universities and journalism schools around the world for decades. Yeah, it's fucking despicable. Anyway, you also, look here, Reuters. Reuters and AP journalists killed in Gaza strike were not a target, an Israeli military spokesman says. Why are you even saying what they're saying? It's crazy. Alan McLeod, don't work for Reuters. If you do and Israel kills you, they'll end up whitewashing your murder as a tragic mishap. An accident. It was accidental. So, the Associated Press did not bother to mention in their headline the name of the freelancer who worked with him. Well, her name is Mariam Abu Daqqa, and here is our photo. Shame on you, all racist media who are complicit in Israeli war crimes against humanity. Marwa Osman, say her name, you warmongering psychopaths. So... Here's the Zay Squirrel. The AP got a fanatical Zionist propagandist who has laundered every Israeli genocidal atrocity hoax for them to write this piece on actual Palestinian journalists murdered by her precious death cult. So again, we fucking Melanie Lidman, right, over at the AP, you should just fire her. So Land of Oz weighed in, right, old Oz the Boomer. Mm-hmm. He says, here, let me fix this for you, you rancid pieces of absolute shit. Breaking. 4 journalists, including a freelancer for AP, are among 8 butchered in yet another merciless, inhuman, cold-blooded Israeli strike on southern Gaza's Nasser hospital. This is not defense. It is calculated slaughter, an obscene act of brutality against the very people who dared to bear witness. Fucking insane. So here's this I found. So Israeli propaganda is run on 2 channels, one for foreign consumption, another for domestic bloodlust. In English, the Zionist press spins the double strike on Nasser hospital, killing journalists, medics, and patients as a mistake. The language is sanitized, made to sound like an unfortunate accident in the fog of war. In Hebrew, the same strike is celebrated. Outlets openly brag about hitting the hospital twice, describing it as a terrorist headquarters and boasting about eliminating people inside, including those they admit were disguised as journalists. The target wasn't a battlefield, it was a medical complex filled with the wounded, reporters, and first responders. This is the operational doctrine of the occupation in one language, deny and apologize in the other, boast and incite. It's not confusion, it's the deliberate duality of a regime that knows its crimes won't survive a single consistent telling. Right? And here's the Jerusalem Post, right? IDF admits mistaken attack on hospital, killing journalists. Right? Oopsies. A big old oopsies, right? So, again, you know, this Netanyahu claims to value their work of the journalist, right? More of this kind of nonsense. So, but, yeah, I mean, Hassan Duhan was shot by Israeli forces in al-Mawasi area of Khan Yunis, right? That was the other member. So, but here's Netanyahu. Israel deeply regrets the tragic mishap that occurred today. Israel values the work of journalists. Military authorities are conducting a thorough investigation. Our war is with the Hamas terrorists. Our just goals are defeating Hamas and bringing our hostages home. Yeah, we know that's bullshit, right? But meanwhile, right, what actually happened was the fighters claimed the attack on the terror headquarters, Nasir, was approved and coordinated with the senior command. So it ain't no mistake. They motherfucking knew. And, like, they're complaining that they're apologizing, essentially. Right? So, Channel 14 reported that Sayeret Golani, who ordered the mass slaughter of civilians and journalists, are angry at Netanyahu's characterization of the attack as a mishap. Right? So, they're like, nah, motherfucker, stand on business. We did that shit.
Right.
Like... And I've seen other sentiments from Israelis for the same shit. You know, like, be proud that we're conquering. You know? Fucking vile. So, here's another will, right? Dedicated to the child of a slaughtered journalist, right? Mayum Abu Daka and her only son, right? She writes to her son, my heart and soul, my son, I want you to pray for me and not cry over me so that I may remain at peace. I want you to make me proud, be smart, excel, stand tall, and become a successful man, a businessman worthy of the name, my beloved. Promise me, Mama, that you won't forget me. I did everything to make you happy, to see you smiling and comfortable, to give you all that I could. And when you grow up, marry and have a daughter, name her Mariam after me. You are my love, my heart, my support, my soul, my son, the one who always makes me proud, and whose good reputation brings me joy. And Gehath, my dearest, your prayers, your prayers, your prayers, never abandoned them. Your mother, Mariam. So, another will to a child I've had to read. As well as her, Al Jazeera's photojournalist Mohammed Salama was just killed in the horrific Israeli attack on the medical complex, as well as Hassam al-Masri, Reuters cameraman, right? And here he is taking this heart-shattering video of himself near his destroyed house a year and a half ago, right? So here we'll play this briefly. My home was here, my life was here, but life ended when the occupation destroyed everything I once had in this place. The place is desolate, utterly desolate. Life was once here. Children once played here. People once lived here. Yes, life was here, but now life is ended. Where are the houses? Where are the children? Where are the people who lived in this place? It is a desolate place. It is a dark place. Nothing remains here but the ruins we weep over. We weep over them. I mean, these are the journalists that Israel does not want people seeing.
Too late.
I know. Abu Bakr Abed, I never imagined in the worst case scenarios to see bios like this. This is a Middle East Eye. We've used plenty of their stuff before, right? And they now have to addend this biography of Muhammad Salama, right? Who started working with the Middle East Eye shortly after Israel launched its campaign in Gaza. Also contributed for several other media outlets of freelance capacity, most notably Al Jazeera Arabic and Al Jazeera Mubashir. He was killed along with 4 other journalists and at least 15 other people as a result of an Israeli double-tack strike on the Nasir Hospital, southern Gaza, on the 25th of August. So one of the journalists Israel murdered today reported on Israel murdering a critical witness in the paramedic massacre investigation, which we also covered. I don't know if you remember that, Care Bear, where they assassinated Palestinian Red Crescent members, right? So yes. Even journalist Ahmed Aziz, who reported on Israel shooting dead 12-year-old Muhammad Bardawil, a key witness to Sayat Golani's perpetration of the largest massacre of aid workers in decades, was later killed on the orders of the same unit. Right? So, yeah. But I wanted to bring this because I think people have to see it. This is, I think, as damning as Collateral Murder from WikiLeaks. Right? Which they literally locked up Julian for, publishing. Right? So this is, they essentially killed people, and as they are trying to help the injured, they kill the paramedics. That is called a double tap. That is what war crimes we committed in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now happening again. So I think that's important video to show, right? So, and there, Al Jazeera has other footage that I'm not going to bring because it's Al Jazeera closer to that angle, literally within that, like, stairwell. And like you literally see the explosion happen. So pretty much there's no denying that war crime happened, regardless of what it was. So anyway, Dave DeCamp reminding people that the U.S. State Department refused to comment on this double tap strike on the Nasir Hospital, because of course they did. Guess what, Collin? They referred us to the government of Israel. That's, again, we defer you to the fucking lying maniacs. That's what we're doing, right? As they did the same thing with Anas al-Sharif. They're like, nah, we ain't saying shit, dude. Ask them. It's like, no, you ask them. Anyway. The U.S. likely provided Israel with the munitions used to bomb the hospital, as Israeli military officials have said that both strikes on the hospital were launched from a tank And since the start of Israeli genocidal war in Gaza, the U.S. provided Israel with tens of thousands of shells for its Merkava tanks. The double-tap strike was caught on video, which showed rescue workers and journalists who arrived at the scene of the initial strike being hit. The Israeli military is claiming that the attack targeted a Hamas camera, but it offered no evidence, and the initial strike killed a Reuters cameraman, Hussam al-Masri, who was filming from the site. So, this is Imad Abul Hakim al-Shair, a Gaza civil defense crew member and father of 3, was killed this morning, and 7 other first responders were injured when rescuing victims after the initial strike on Nasir complex, right? So, and you saw this guy in the video, right? This is Abdullah Amir holding the camera of journalist Hassam al-Masri. He was the first to reach the site of the initial strike, where he found his colleague killed, and the camera turned into a silent witness to the crime. Moments later, civil defense teams and fellow journalists arriving to document the massacre, only for Israel to strike again, killing them too. Live on air, the camera was killed, but the truth will never die. So again, there's this double tap strike on the Nasir hospital in Gaza, which killed 5 journalists, including staff working for the AP, Reuters, NBC, and Al Jazeera. Is a potential violation of international law. The attack targeted a civilian building, specifically a hospital, in a reckless double-tap strike that killed civilians, with rescue workers and journalists among them, all categories that should be protected under international law, while the IDF, which has killed about 200 journalists already in the Gaza war, immediately attempted to suggest the killing of civilians had been in error. The reality is that it appears to be policy and not a mistake. The attack comes barely 2 weeks after renowned Al Jazeera journalist Anand al-Sharif was killed along with 4 of his media colleagues in front of Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza. Mondoweiss, Israeli army says it does not target journalists after targeting and killing 5 journalists. It's like a fucking Onion headline. You know? This is Laura, Normal Island News, with a bit of sarcasm because gallows humor is necessary. Israel accidentally bombed journalists in a hospital and then accidentally bombed the rescuers. It was a big oopsie poopsies. Let's be honest, who hasn't accidentally launched a suicide drone in a hospital, taking out a bunch of journalists who were live on air, and then accidentally launching a follow-up strike that took out the rescuers? That's a very easy mistake to make. Was made by Israel today, and predictably, all of the worst people are giving the IDF a hard time. The IDF double-tapped the Nasir hospital in what appears to be an unfortunate case of misidentification. It's unclear if the drone operator mistook the hospital for a school or a food distribution center. Israel has only accidentally bombed the Nasir hospital 8 times, so it's not like it makes the habit of this sort of thing. Israel is so sorry about the latest incident that it hasn't even faked evidence and claimed the journalists were Hamas. No, it has held its hands up and promised to investigate itself. It looks forward to finding itself not guilty, just like it did all these other times it bombed hospitals and journalists and schools and refugee tents and people in aid cubes. And, well, you get the picture. Israel is the unluckiest country in the world, and you should cut it some slack. If you had had this much bad luck, you would want people to ease off you. The Twitter account of Israel's foreign ministry believes in accountability so strongly that it dedicates about 50% of its output to claiming Western journalists are lying about the starvation in Gaza. I therefore have no doubt that Israel's investigation into its own crimes will be just as credible as Donald Trump's handling of the Ghislaine Maxwell thing. If only the UK understood justice as well as Israel and the US, Lucy Connolly could have found herself not guilty and saved an awful lot of bother. Sadly, we have some way to go to catch up to the only democracy in the Middle East and its obedient vassals. Israel takes such care to avoid harming uninvolved individuals that it had only killed 274 of the journalists that were revealing its war crimes. Israel has carefully killed more journalists than were killed in every other 20th century war combined, making the IDF the world's unluckiest army. Israel's latest unfortunate mishap ended the lives of journalists Hassam al-Masri, Muhammad Salam, Mariam Abu Daka, and Moaz Abu Taha, but the real victim is the Israeli drone operator who is feeling sad about what he did. committing genocide can be stressful. But why do you think the Nasir hospital was targeted, Care Bear? Because it ain't gonna be because of fucking no Hamas camera. You want to know the real reason? Well,
Yes.
internet access, we've talked about before, being targeted by Israel, right? And here they are again, right? You know, pictures can only be done from really high places, right? As well as just connecting to satellites, right? So this is literally them trying to upload the footage, right? Look how many people are here on this same spot trying to do the same. We've got all these journalists, all these people sitting back here on this stairwell, right? Just to use the internet. So, again, that's why they, when we talked about the cafe massacre, that was exactly what they were targeting there as well. But I have this. So this is Dr. Issam Hamad, right, who writes these words with a trembling heart and shaking hands, overwhelmed by the horror we are witnessing today. 4 journalists were killed before the eyes of the entire world, as if humanity itself was buried with them. The occupation has crossed every boundary, every international law, and I'm now certain that humanity no longer exists in this world. What scenes are left after the deliberate killing, starvation, and targeting of innocents, doctors, paramedics, or civil defense teams? They want to silence every voice and eliminate every witness. Even my thoughts are clouded. I find myself wondering how my term will come in this genocide. Will it be under the bombing or by direct targeting? They have broken our minds and exhausted our souls. We ask for nothing from this world that has abandoned us. Thank you to a world that has betrayed its own humanity. Our bodies and spirits are torn apart, waiting only for mercy from above after losing all hope in yours. So, thoughts, Care Bear?
I mean, we said it earlier and we say it every week. Like, it sucks that we have to or pretty much do this at least once a month.
Yep.
And, you know, like, and I said to you last night, because you were kind of doubting to talk about this, but I was like, if we don't, then no one else is going to really, because at this point, it's just becoming like a regular Wednesday for us. Like, in terms of talking about stories like these people, again, they're just so detached from this issue now, or seemingly so, that it's almost like people are getting tired of it.
Yeah.
And I get it, but at the same time, it's like it's getting so tiring that they just rather talk about something else.
Well, it's
Over
literally
stuff like this, and I think especially
if it's information
I'm
warfare,
not quite done, but like
people are literally war weary, you know?
right.
So,
But you think the difference with this story is because Western, well, then again, the World Central Kitchen employees, it got a little bit of fanfare in the mainstream media, but it kind
yeah.
of died off very quickly. So it's like, so of course we were expecting, you know, this to happen, but again, it's like people are just so distracted now that it's just like the mainstream media know, and I also argue independent media too knows that they can get away with it because
Yep.
no one is thinking about Palestine. So yeah, it's same shit, different day.
Yep. Until there literally won't be any left for us to like remember, you know? So,
Yeah.
and then we'll be talking about it in Lebanon and we'll be talking about it in Syria. Like, this is not over, you know? And hopefully it's not over for the people of Palestine either. I would like it to not be that case, but, you know, the future is bleak. unfortunately. But talking about it is certainly why YouTube's demonetized us. So you can scan that QR code, go to ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. We appreciate any support you can give monetarily, but more importantly, share the video. Send this to people who need to see this. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Leave a comment, leave your words for the fallen. But otherwise, thanks for watching.